So let's go back into the signaling roles of beta-hydroxybutyrate and talk more about the protective mechanisms that it's involved with. So we know that there's been evidence, you were involved in the evidence showing that it's an HDAC inhibitor, and it upregulates our cellular, like the FOXO3A gene, which is part of our oxidative stress resistance pathways. So we're reducing the amount of oxidative stress in our cells, which there's a reactive oxygen theory of aging. So it's funny when you think about all the theories of aging, ketosis seems to be involved with all of them. If it's inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, free radicals, even NAD depletion, ketosis is kind of intertwined in all of those theories. So it seems to be like a very unifying mechanism that ketosis might apply. But yeah, if you want to go into detail on these signaling roles that BHB has, so maybe talk about inflammation, if you can start with that.
Yes, yeah, it's a brand new field. There's growing evidence that that BHB is a pleiotropic factor. That is, it has both an effect as a nutrient, as I illustrated or discussed earlier. So it's a form of energy that your body can use. But we also know that it speaks to a number of molecules in your body, including a number of receptors at the surface of the cells that are involved in lipid signaling, but also by its ability to interact with the inflammasome. So the inflammasome think about it as an integrating point for a number of signals that actually creates the inflammatory response, or a big part of the inflammatory response. And so, there's a whole theory of aging that's also linked to the idea that aging, the damage associated with aging leads to a chronic inflammatory state. And therefore, there's been a lot of interest in understanding both what are the consequences of this inflammatory state, why is it bad to have a chronic inflammatory state, and second, how can we block it? And so both BHB, the ketone ester, and NAD, and we can talk about NAD a little bit later because we've got some really interesting data on inflammation and NAD levels, which is brand new data that's about to be published. So in terms of BHB, it's a fascinating molecule, as I said. There's data coming out of a group, Dixit at Yale, showing that it is able to inhibit NLRP3, this critical inflammasome mediator, and thereby to suppress inflammation. So that's really one key data. And as you mentioned, we have previously shown that beta-hydroxybutyrate serves as an HDAC inhibitor, and thereby is able to modulate via an epigenetic mechanism the regulation of a number of genes that have been shown to be involved in carrier restriction. And these include FOXO3, just as one of the few genes that has been involved in longevity in humans. There are polymorphisms in that genes that are associated with centenarians. And it's thought to be really activating a whole series of mechanisms that protects you against oxidative stress. And the whole oxidative stress theory of aging, I think, remains an incredibly important theory. There's been some controversy initially because global antioxidants do not seem to be protective against aging, but our understanding is getting much more subtle in realizing that not all forms of oxidative stress actually are toxic. Some of them are actually necessary for signaling, but there's a growing evidence that it's the excess of oxidative stress that becomes toxic. And therefore, we believe that this might be one of the mechanisms by which beta-hydroxybutyrate actually plays its protective role.
Yeah, and that could be due to the reduction of free radical production and then also the upregulation of glutathione in our cells. Yes. So it's like a double whammy against oxidative stress.
Yes,